Are you a parent navigating the complexities of co-parenting, family court, or even domestic violence? If you are looking for ways to help protect your children and build a strong and supportive community around you, then look no further. Gray Minds Think Alike is your go-to resource for everything related to the complexities of family life. Join us as we dive into thoughtful conversations with experts and explore practical tips and strategies for tackling the challenges of parenthood in the throes of adversity so that no parent feels alone and every child's safety is protected. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Gray Minds Think Alike. Today in our virtual studio, we have our trusted co-host, Erin Cooper, and special guest all the way from Australia, Nova Gibson, the director and founder of Brighter Outlook and Narcissistic Abuse Counseling Service, to share her insights and wisdom on narcissistic abuse. As a therapist, podcaster, author, and expert, Nova knows all about fake love, which you can read about in her new book, where she helps identify, navigate, and survive toxic relationships. And just in time for Valentine's Day. So hi, Nova. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Hi, Ellie.
If you could just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So as you said, I'm a professional counsellor here in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. I am a therapist, in my principal counsellor in my own practice, where I now specialise in, my area of expertise that I've chosen to focus solely on is in supporting victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse. Before I opened my practice, which was about 2012, I believe, I worked for 10 years in the child protection field, children's services, I guess you would call it over there, frontline,
right.
Hand in hand with the police. So I saw families breaking down children in devastating, just horrific conditions, positions. And I saw a lot of toxic relationships. But the most toxic relationships I saw was when I first opened my practice and I started doing couples therapy. And that's where I saw that I couldn't do the couples counseling anymore, because you have to be there for both people. And I could see, especially from my personal experience, that I could see that there was a power imbalance in these relationships. And that's when I chose to focus solely on the victims of narcissistic abuse.
Well, that makes sense. I guess let's start. If you can give our listeners a good definition of what narcissism is, just basic.
Sure. So if you're going to go by the manual, the Bible, the DSM-5, you're going to get probably a different version of narcissistic personality disorder than I would give my version, and the version I haven't got in front of me, so you're not going to hear the exact version, but that I have in my book. But basically, I define narcissism, or pathological narcissism, as the abuse that's inflicted by a narcissist with the aim of dismantling your personality, destroying your self-worth, your self-esteem, making it so that, or conditioning you to not trust your instincts, eroding any boundaries that you have away. And all the while this is happening, they're conditioning you to blame yourself for the abuse. They want to basically create a new personality, as you would see in one of those cult documentaries, or maybe your listeners have experienced that firsthand, where they dismantle who you are to create someone who is easier to manipulate and abuse.
Now, do you believe that's considered a disorder, or is it just a trait that someone could have?
It's definitely a disorder, but I think the word disorder is relative in terms of it's only a disorder in so much that it's these people who have no empathy, no compassion, massive sense of entitlement, et cetera, are different from us, from the people we consider to be normal, I guess, in society, people who have empathy, where you wouldn't intentionally hurt someone else. So it's a disorder because they are different from, and this is my opinion, from what we consider to be a normal human being. But it's probably the only disorder, in inverted commas, that the person who has the disorder is not negatively impacted by it. So
Right. They have no idea.
They know that there's something a bit different about them, I believe, but that's more in terms of I'm special. You just can't see it. You can't see how grand I am. So it's a disorder in terms of they're different, I believe, from us, but they're I think it's the only disorder where the actual person with the disorder is not negatively impacted by it, and everyone around the person with the disorder is in therapy.
Right. For that person. Now,
Yes.
why do many narcissists believe that coercive control is the only way to go?
Coercive control, narcissistic abuse, they go hand in hand. And the only way to go, I guess, my answer to that would be is that they've got to do it so that it's not obvious. So coercive control often begins under the guise of caring. So you may meet the person of your dreams, and they want to go clothes shopping with you. This is if the narcissist is a man, or maybe it's a woman, because it's not gender specific, this type of abuse. But they want to go shopping with you for clothes all the time. Oh my goodness, they're interested in what I wear. This is amazing. Everyone thinks you've got, the boyfriend or the girlfriend of your dreams because they're so into you. And then it might kind of go to, I want to pick you up every day for it because I care about you so much. The victim is flattered by this, and they seem so caring, they're so into them. But there's this gradual, slippery slope into that's not visible. It's not overt, into us helplessness and complete control, because the victim fears the punishment if they make a decision of their own. And the punishments start off small, just a little sulk here and there, just a little slamming of the fridge, or not coming home on time when they used to. The victim grows to learn that it was because they didn't ask them about what they were going to wear that day, or they came home with makeup on and they're pretty enough without it. They get conditioned to be under the rule of the dominant narcissist through that punishment, because in the end, it's just easier to do what they want than to have to go through the punishments, which they're not always, hitting or, really obvious screaming and yelling. It's more the silent treatments, not coming home, staying away, the stonewalling. They are traumatizing, and that's the nature of coercive control. So if they're out there, leaving bruises on your body everywhere, and all the neighbors could hear them screaming and yelling, I'm not saying that doesn't go on. It would be more, and if they were like that all the time, it would be easier to leave. So the victim becomes accustomed to living like this, and they normalize it and they minimize it and they rationalize it away.
Is this where you often see love bombing in the beginning, where they develop that like overwhelming affection toward their target or their, potential partner?
Yes, absolutely. Each individual narcissist is obviously going to have their own way of love bombing and the degree of it. But love bombing is about making you feel amazing and so desirable and coming on thick and fast, like you're the only one, so that it happens so fast and you feel just so elated by basically the dopamine rush that you get, that you become hooked on that feeling, so that when they rip it away, which is inevitable, that's written in the stars the second you meet them, you crash and you don't know what you've done. So then the devaluing starts, where you're forever chasing that initial high, like the heroin addict is forever chasing that first euphoric hit, which is never again attainable.
Right. Now, I've heard you mention word salad, which I find to be so on point, because when I was dealing with my abuser, I felt like we were always playing a game of telephone where I would say something and it would turn into something completely different. Is word salad something similar?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the epitome of word salad. Word salad is about deflection. It's about confusing you. It's about shifting the discussion away from what you were trying to make them accountable, and shifting it on to another subject, often where you end up being the one who's defending yourself for some perceived indiscretion that you did 20 years ago. They will make it so exhausting and frustrating for you, when to you it is so black and white. It's like, here you are, here's the evidence, this is what we need to discuss, 1 + 1 = 2, and then you end up talking about something that you did wrong. And they do this to avoid accountability and to drive you insane, so that you don't try and approach them again. It's another form of conditioning.
Right. Well, I'd say
Yeah.
it's like an art form, really.
Yeah. Oh, they're skilled in doing this. They're not dumb. They can't think like a chess player, which they have to. If they had a really low IQ, most have at least a very reasonable, if not very high IQ.
That's interesting, because I know for me, my abuser was in Mensa. And I always said that really intelligent people are the ones that you should be wary of.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that's an absolute given, but that's what I found, that with, the thousands of people that I've counseled, that they will always tell me, oh no, they're really intelligent, because that leads me into, well, if they've got a reasonable, normal, high IQ, and they know what society expects from them, they know right from wrong, then there's your answer. When they ask me, do they know what they're doing? There's your answer. They know, they just don't care, because it's all about them, and they justify their abuse. Even if it's just that you tried to approach them to make them accountable. Well, if you're doing that, you're trying to make them accountable for something, then you're telling them there's something wrong with them. Or if you're questioning them about something they said, then you're accusing them of lying. So you deserve the punishment. So they will always justify it.
Yes. And then an extremely intelligent person can be deferred to a lot by maybe a more insecure person, right? If your partner is very intelligent, you would think, okay, I guess he knows. Maybe I shouldn't wear makeup, or maybe he should drive me to work, or all of these things. It just makes the control that much stronger, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And when you say insecure, that's something that's manufactured in you. A lot of, I hear a lot from my beautiful clients. They get told, "Oh, you're codependent. You're codependent. If you're just insecure." They get told this by their abuser. You're paranoid. You're insecure. You're jealous. But they become insecure, but it's manufactured. And so often victims feel themselves, or they're made to feel that somehow, especially by their abuser, somehow their insecurities were the cause of the abuse, not the result of the abuse. So yes, that's why they need to make you feel insecure. They'll literally, and I'm sure you'll be able to attest to examples similar, if not the same, but they'll literally leave black and white evidence in front of you to create an argument, knowing you will confront them about it, just to go, are you reacting to that? you're insecure. I'm just friends with that person. They're sending them nudes, but they're just friends with that person. So they make you feel insecure so they can use your insecurities as a weapon against you.
Right. It's absolutely crazy. Now,
Yeah.
if you're co-parenting with someone like this, how does one co-parent with a narcissist effectively?
Well, the short and sharp answer to that, Ali and Erin, is you can't. You cannot co-parent with a narcissist. And I go into a lot of detail around this in my book, because obviously the next question, I state this in my book, is, well, what the hell do I do then? I've got a child with this person. And that's where we talk about parallel parenting, which means essentially putting rock solid boundaries in place, and you doing what you do on your week with the children. The narcissist does what they do, and you have those boundaries. Those boundaries most probably going to have to be reinforced with orders. I always suggest getting orders where the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And you think of every contingency when you get those orders written till from now until when the children turn 18, because if you leave one little loophole, the narcissist will take that and they will run with it. Now, just a few things. Your orders are essential. You can't negotiate with a narcissist. They will destroy your plans, and they will use the children, obviously, to destroy all the happiness and peace in your home. So that's why you need those boundaries reinforced by a third party, the court. But, just a few things I speak about in my book, and I've got some really good strategies in there, is getting a parenting app where they are in Australia. I'm not sure how they work in
We
the
use
States.
Talking Parents, which is probably something similar.
Yeah, it's in the book. I think it's Our Wizard or something like that. But yeah, all conversations recorded. So you're abused, and that's who they are. They're your abuser. They are less likely to abuse you because they know the court is going to see it. And or if they do send you a tirade of abuse, well, that gives you some pretty good evidence to give to the court, where you may have to get any orders, if in place, adjusted, or simply maybe have sole care of. But you'll have the evidence there that person is not co-parenting.
Well, I think part of the problem is defining that evidence, right? Because a lot of times the court won't see what you have as actual evidence.
Yeah, I know. And that's where yours, and I've spoken to many people in the States who have had experiences in the family court system over there. And you know what? I don't believe it's much better here. It's flawed. They don't get it. They don't get these personality disorders. And often the victim gets punished for the residual effects of the abuse. And the abuser uses the system, the family court, as another platform to extend the control and the domestic violence through litigation abuse, post-separation abuse, financial abuse, all that sort of stuff. And the abuser will engage in, the narcissist will engage in what we call DAVO, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. But they'll just flip the script and make the victim appear to be the abuser. And yes, this is why we just need so much more research. We need more professionals that understand this type of abuse. And the fact that then they're going to get on the stand, a narcissist, so they're going to appear nice. They're not going to have, they're not going to come in there with a big machete and, and a big sign on their forehead saying, hey, I'm a narcissist. They're going to appear nice. They're going to appear like they love their children. So that's where you've got to have tests done, look at history, and understand the disorder. But other than the orders and having the parenting app, things like cutting off their 24-hour-a-day access to you. Now, people think, and they're conditioned to fear their abuser, understandably. They think they have to have their phone open today because, well, I share children with them, Nova. I can't just block them on my phone. Why not? Well, because what if there's an emergency? Okay, so if there's an emergency, well, number one, you've got your parenting app that they can direct all communication through. But if there's an emergency, that's a really valid point. So give the narcissist your mum's number or your best friend's number, and they can act as a go-between. We're not talking about normal relationship breakups here where there's expected transparency, where you can co-parent. That stuff's off the table. It's impossible because they will use any opportunity to counter-parent everything you do and to keep control of you and your emotions. So if you can get through the day knowing that if your phone goes off, it is not going to be them. How freeing is this? You can heal. You can be in an environment where you can heal. So the narcissist is, of course, is going to come back with, well, you're a bad parent. And, the same thing. What if there's an emergency? Well, if it's only about the kids, why would they care if they've got a point of contact? But they will, because they're losing control. Now, when you put these boundaries in place, this is not the same as the difference is in the intent and the motivation. So when they give you the silent treatment, or if they block you or cut you off, that's about control. That's about punishment. When you do this, it's about self-care. The difference is in the intent. So block them. If you've got court coming up, I always suggest you talk to your lawyer no matter what, but you may want to leave that till after the court processes, simply because the family court doesn't get it a lot of the time. So you've just got to jump through the hoops, basically.
I know for me, I had to block my abuser while I was pregnant because it was affecting my health. And I blocked him on my phone and social media. And when I finally did become in contact with him and he moved down here and got custody of Grayson, we did use a Talking Parents, an app for communication. And he was instructed by orders to only use that app. However, he didn't. And I would get bombarded by text messages on top of the Talking Parents messages. And I would just ignore them. I had to come to fruition and just say, I cannot reply ever because it gives them the power. And then, of course, his response would be, you don't care about your child?
Bad parent. Yeah, so it's lose-lose. So I don't understand how that can happen. And it happens here too. This is where you need a good lawyer. If you've got a parenting app to use and they've just said, no, I'm not using that. Well, isn't that an indication of their lack of willingness to, I guess, things in place to make communication easier? And obviously, it's like if one person wants a divorce, okay? You want a divorce in a relationship, and the other person goes, I don't want a divorce, so you're going to stay with me because I still, want to be married to you. What's the point of that? I want to just give them the divorce because clearly this person doesn't want to be with you. It's going to work out better for both of you if you just, put things in place that, if you share children, that you can move on and get on with your life because this person doesn't want to be with you. So one person is saying, hey, I don't want to speak to you. And the narcissist knows why. They know why. They just want to keep control of you. But if one person is saying, this is what's best for me, why would you have a problem with that? They reveal themselves. So the court should look at that and take action and I guess breach them if they're, if that's in the order, and I'm not sure that you have an order, but if it's in the order that they use the parenting app, well, they're breaching it.
Yeah, I mean, we were, going to use that tactic to sort of, get emotion, but it just never happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Allie, I think it would have been effective if you could have somehow blocked his phone number and maybe given him your mom's number and said, call my mom if there's trouble with Grayson. I mean, I guess it
I
didn't
mean, I can
occur to
only
us
imagine the messages my mom would get.
right. I guess, you'd have to figure, or you could give him my number.
You'd pick someone, yeah. And I would suggest, and I always suggest doing this. This is about healing for a traumatized victim who has things like complex post-traumatic stress disorder. They've been abused, and they have to hear the intimidation in the voice of their abuser, who rings just to tell you that you forgot to pack their toothbrush or something like that, and you feel compelled to take their call because you share a child. That isn't about the toothbrush. That's about power and control. Right. So, yeah, if it was your mum and you believed that he would intimidate her, then get someone else. Get a bloke.
Right.
Do it. Someone they're less likely to intimidate. Get the biggest guy at work to be the mediator and let your abuser tell that person that you didn't pack a toothbrush. Yeah,
I got messages like that all the time.
No, it's just it's a fantastic suggestion, and it's like outside of the box. So I really appreciate that. I've never thought of that before.
Yeah. There's so many strategies in my books.
Let's talk about your book, Fake Love.
Sure. Okay. So Fake Love, can you see that? Yep.
Yeah.
Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, published by HarperCollins. It was the best-selling self-help book in Australia in 2023 when it was released, which I'm very proud of. And it is as I say in the beginning, I did not write this book so it would be a textbook, something you'd see in, universities, nor did I want it to just be one of the many where you just go, okay, this is what narcissists do, and this is what you should do. This is more a victim's handbook, a victim's Bible, telling you, how this started and validating your trauma in all types of relationships, whether that's a parent or an intimate partner, and absolute concrete strategies to escape if you're still highly trauma bonded, addicted to the roller coaster, how to escape, and concrete strategies, not airy-fairy ones, concrete strategies to escape and to heal. And it's not a boring textbook. It's very, very easy reading. I wanted it to be for the victim, not for a scholar.
Well, I wish I had it a few years ago, that's for sure. Now, why did you call it Fake Love? Like, obviously it's because the abuser uses a fake love of sorts, but do you believe that there is ever true love?
Well, no. And that's because of how most of us as normal human beings, where we have a normal range of emotions, we have that's what sets us apart from robots. We have empathy, we have that agency, and we have, the ability, the capacity to reflect on our behavior. The narcissist doesn't do that. So love is just a word. Okay, so it's just a word unless it is backed up by consistent patterns of behavior, not isolated incidents, not breadcrumbs, but consistent patterns of behavior that reflect what we, as I define kind of what a normal human being is with empathy, what we believe love is. So that would be someone who cares about, someone who has compassion, genuineness, someone who is loyal, someone we trust, someone that has our back when we're not there, someone who has empathy and that's reciprocated and you trust them. Those types of things, that's what defines love. So if you believe that love is, and I don't mean to sound facetious here, but if you believe that love is, is telling you how amazing you are one day or 1 minute, and in the next minute doing something that completely negates those words, or they flip and they flop from the words I love you to making you feel like they despise you, then yes, they love you. That's not love. We think, though, when we're trauma bonded to them and we feel so lost without them, and we miss them and we ruminate about them, we think that we love them because it's so painful. And the thought of them being with someone else is excruciating. And so we think we must love them. So, better to be with them than to be in this pain because we must love them. That's not love, because I just defined what love is. That's addiction. It's not that it feels good to be with this person. It's that it feels so bad to be without them. That's right. Withdrawal. That's addiction. That's a trauma bond.
Is there a rehab for this type of person?
For the abuser, for the victim?
For the abuser.
For the abuser, well, they'd have to think there was something wrong with themselves for them to go into any kind of rehabilitation facility, wouldn't they? They're not going to walk into a therapist's office and, say, hey, I'm here, fix me, I'm a narcissist. That's never going to happen. They will go to therapy, absolutely, to manipulate the counselor and to get attention and to re-traumatize you as the victim. And this is why another reason I believe that the research is so flawed. The statistics that we have are so flawed. And these are probably the statistics that the family court take into consideration in terms of how much time, money they put in to addressing personality disorders in, these 3 or 4% of cases that actually make it to the family court, is the fact that the stats seem to be so low. What narcissist is going to go, yeah, I'll be involved in your research? Then they're not going to do that. So it's most of the time it's when it's court ordered. Where are they getting these stats from? I believe they are way higher.
So what else in your book should our listeners expect to find?
Oh, well, lots and lots. So I talk a lot about divorcing a narcissist. It's a really terribly confusing time, and it's just the abuse on steroids. Some people wonder if it's worse because they want to punish you for being able to live without them or for taking their property, which includes, the children. I talk a lot about co-parenting in inverted commas, but parallel parenting. I talk a lot about the children of narcissists and the adult children of narcissists, whom we call ACON, ACON, and the dynamic that exists in every narcissistic family that keeps all the abuse behind closed doors, where there are roles such as the scapegoat child, and the golden child, and how those roles are put in place, are allocated to boost the ego of the narcissistic parent, pit their own children against each other through what we call triangulation, which every narcissist does, especially in intimate relationships too. Smear campaigns, flying monkeys, the Hoover maneuver. The Hoover maneuver meaning to suck you back in. It comes from the Hoover vacuum cleaner. Suck you back in, not just to the intimate relationship, but into the vortex of arguing, of coming out of no contact, and much, much more. The love bomb, devalue, discard phase. A lot about trauma bonding and Stockholm syndrome and everything that goes along with that.
Well, it sounds fantastic. And I'm definitely going to put the link in the show notes to purchase Fake Love. Now, with Valentine's Day approaching, can you give our listeners some self-love tips? so they can heal?
Absolutely. Okay. So if you've been discarded by a narcissist, or if you've managed to escape, then you have to wrap your arms around yourself. You've been conditioned to believe that anything you do for yourself is selfish. It has a selfish agenda. And sometimes you feel like you can't get out of bed. You're so traumatized. So you might have to make yourself do it while it feels bad. Do what essentially should feel good. But please make the effort. Go and buy that special dress, or that, I don't know, whatever it is that you were thinking about, that you might have to stretch the budget a little bit. Surround yourself with people who love you, and don't look at what the narcissist is doing, because they are only manipulating someone else. And that person will go through exactly what you have been through. The other thing to be mindful of, the Hoover maneuver. Narcissists love to bait you around Christmas, your birthday. They also love to use these times to discard you on Valentine's Day. So that's something to be prepared for also.
That's interesting.
Because they want you obviously to suffer, and they want you to align them with that day for years to come. So it's not just about suffering, it's about creating a conditioned response, so that every Valentine's Day, will you be thinking of that day as something potentially happy, or will you be associating it with the trauma of being discarded and seeing them with the new supply, which is just horrific. They pick those days for a reason, so that Christmases, you remember them. You don't remember happy times. So self-love, wrap your arms around yourself. You spoil yourself, and get lots and lots of support. Please don't think that they are with someone else and that they have changed for that person. As sure as the sun will come up tomorrow, they have to drop the mask. It's like what goes up must come down. It's not sustainable for them to be someone who they are not. They have to revert to who they really are eventually. So they will go through exactly the same cycle with the next person, but you're traumatized and you have a normal range of emotions. So if you look, you will hurt, and they want you to hurt. So you will see all the happy snaps. You will think, what's wrong with me? But what's better about that person? Nothing. They just conditioned you to believe everything was your fault. They left you with no closure so that you would be frantic, seeking closure. And they left you just an absolute basket case, or feeling crazy, because that's the goal of narcissistic abuse. So there's nothing better with that person. But if you look, you will see what they want you to see, and you will hurt. So don't ask people what they're doing, and don't look. Don't have a sneak peek on Instagram at what their new target is doing. That's contact. And that is like the heroin addict putting the needle back in their arm. That's looking at their Instagram. It's just as damaging. You may as well pick up the phone and call them. So
Right.
lots of self-love and no contact, or minimal contact, grey rock, if you share children or if you have to see.
Got it. Those are all very good tips.
And I just wanted to stress, expect the Hoover. But you've got to be pro, not react, because when you are if you're that heroin addict and you're in terrible withdrawal, and the drug dealer who does not want a paying client to get clean waves a bag of drugs in front of you, it's just a matter of time. So you've got to block them everywhere. You've got to be proactive. And if they get that rose through, I don't know, through a flying monkey or something you just least expect that you forgot to block, do not think of it as flattering. or that they've changed. They are trying to regain control of you. We are not talking about isolated incidents. Anyone can have a bad day. We're talking about what you've got to trust your instincts around now, which is these consistent, ongoing patterns of behavior over space and time.
Now, I'm just curious before we wrap up, we talk a lot about narcissists and their partners or relationships, but what about the child dealing with a narcissistic parent or a coworker? Maybe you're a narcissist and your coworkers have to deal with that behavior. What can they do? Because clearly it's probably dealt with a little bit different.
Yeah, well, a young child, unfortunately, I can't speak to them. I can speak to the parents in terms of getting that child into counseling, getting them lots of support, obviously talking to them at an age appropriate level, but getting them their own support. But the adult child of a narcissist, you're allowed to block a toxic parent. You don't have to see them because you're connected through DNA. That's really hard to come to terms with when you've been conditioned over a lifetime through fear, obligation, and guilt that you are this person because they birthed you. And that narcissistic parent will get more reliant on you as they get older because all their supplies are drying up. So they fall back very heavily on you. So the abuse ramps up because you're it and you don't owe them. We don't owe our parents. It's just something in a loving relationship, we naturally do. But with a narcissistic parent, it's a debt. That's a debt you will never pay in full. You're allowed to block them and do not feel the need to explain yourself to them, number one, because they know why. Right. They're abusing you. They're gaslighting you. They're covertly abusing you. Giving you the little subtle insults under the guise of caring when they come over. Geez, your house isn't as clean as it was last week, or have you put on a few pounds? I'm really worried about your weight. The backhanded compliment or really an insult, those types of things. You're allowed to go no contact and you don't have to explain yourself to them, and definitely not to others who will be the recipients of a smear campaign and will see this only what the narcissistic parent has projected out to the world, that you are the perfect family and they're the perfect parent. And you're a wayward child who's ungrateful and just doesn't, it's just not seeing how much they did for you and is just being so cruel, trying to stay away from them in their hour of need when they're getting older. That will be the type of thing they spread around. And you don't have to explain to those people who don't get it, who won't. Those people who don't walk in your shoes, they won't get it. Society doesn't get it. And the narcissist will make damn sure they don't see who you see. So for those children, your healing journey comes when you are in an environment that is not making you sick. And that means either no contact or very firm boundaries around contact, which may mean a hiatus, having a break, or just setting time limits and things like that.
Well, I agree with all of that. And I hope our listeners were able to get some valuable and helpful tips. And I will definitely be grabbing your book because I want to read all about fake love.
Great.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm so glad that, I was able to, provide a little bit of insight into what you can do and the fact that it's not your fault and that you are conditioned to not trust yourself, to feel crazy. That is the goal, to make you feel crazy. And it is not your fault. Yeah.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
My absolute pleasure, Erin and Ali. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Nice meeting you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nova. If there's someone that you want to hear from on this podcast, please feel free to send me an email. Or if you would like to be a guest, please reach out at Allie@graysonschoice.org.